share, desktop, share, back to that. Good enough. Okay. Welcome to React Denver. This is February already. Holy crap. 2026. Have to put the year in there just because it's been far too long of a year already. Looking for speakers for next month. I have topics in mind, but this is always a first come, first serve situation. Bring a topic, you can speak. I don't really care. We've had Ember talks before, so it happens to be a React group, but let's be real. This is just a nerd group talking about software. So, anywho, today we have John. I met John at React Rally 3 years ago? Or 2 years? 2 or 3 years ago. And just, I happened to sponsor a meetup in Utah because I had money to burn. And it came. A couple other friends came from there too. Lars, which he's probably in Australia again, because he's there like every week apparently. Anyway, we have John here talking Supabase, which is a nice, fun, all-in-one toolbox that I've kind of toyed around with a little bit. It's Postgres, mostly. So yay for non-document store like Firebase. But I will let him get going. I need to get you on Zoom. Let me get you the link. Copy invite link. Up here, in there, paste. Okay, that's the Zoom link.
Since it's Discord.
I sent it here.
Yeah. Put Discord on here.
Just say mirroring, yeah, your entire screen. And I will that. Hooray for technology. I am not nearly as set up as CJ is. CJ has all this stuff nailed down. There you go. I'm going to stop my camera. And as soon as you join, I'll ask you to.
I really don't need Discord. I've never used it.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know that I can use it. That looks like it failed. Do you have another way to send this link?
Yeah.
I think it's maybe.
Discord with their updates.
But it's fine. I've never used it.
It's an Electron app that has updates almost every single day. I actually worked with mentoring a junior engineer with Discord when they were doing a boot camp. Not sure they're still there. It was a couple of years ago. All right. Yep. Hit join.
Recording in progress.
Okay, so you want to say share, send request. All right. Share in the desktop. And now you are recorded.
Okay.
Oh. You have to give it permission. You're not sharing just yet. Just go into system settings. Go down here. And security, I think. Or is it accessibility? It popped up telling you to need something for screen sharing.
I think the pop-up came up. I think it's just clicking the share.
So go back to Zoom,
Yeah.
hit share. Okay.
So now I'm screen sharing.
You are now screen. And your screen is being recorded, so
Pull up all your bank info, please.
Unfortunately, this bar now is now blocking everything that I need to access. There we go.
It disappears.
All right. So last week, Jeff contacted me and asked if I fancied having a look at Supabase. So I've been looking at Supabase just for a little while, but this is the first time I've actually used it. I've realized that it is like a full package and make developing very quickly. Sorry, it can help you develop very quick. So Supabase, when I looked at it, at first I thought it was just a database offering. So it was just database as a service. But I've actually discovered it's a lot more than that. It also includes auth and a lot of other cool features that can really help you get up and running with an app quite quickly and quite easily. They have quite a lot of access with SDKs. So a little bit about me. So this is a picture of me and my daughter. I'm a family man, sports enthusiast, and developer. There's probably more emphasis on the sports enthusiast, but I'm quickly picking up pace with the developing right now. I'm enjoying it. All right, so the value proposition of Supabase. Jeff, there's a way I can get this off the corner.
Yeah.
Or is it there?
yep, that one. It's as small as possible.
Yeah. Right, so the value proposition of Supabase, if you actually follow any of their media, is that they are a backend as a service. So not necessarily just a database as a service. So this is actually taken straight off their website, and their selling point is building a weekend scale to millions, meaning that they can take care of all of your scaling needs and handle everything that a normal backend would handle. Every Supabase project that you start is a fully managed Postgres database, which is, it's pretty cool. So if you're wanting things that are relational, storing data that's relational in nature, then Postgres does seem to be the gold standard. Right, so how does Supabase deliver this? The first thing that was different for me to get used to was that they actually have Postgres endpoints. Now, if you're like me, I hadn't heard of Postgres before. But what it is they can create a Supabase client and they'll create API endpoints for your tables that you create in Postgres. Those API endpoints you can actually build out like an SQL query. So you'll have like the base endpoint for the table that you want, .select, and you can query that select, then you can build it like a query all the way through and start pulling information from your database without hitting a large egress. So rather than select all on an endpoint, you can actually build it and be more specific. So I thought that was really cool. I actually looked into Postgres a little bit more about that, and it is available to be able to put on with other databases as a service. But Supabase is the only one that does have it as a standard and built in. One thing, I'll move on to authentication, but the Postgres endpoints actually really do help with the authentication that Supabase can offer, in that you can then start using the role level security in the database. And that really tightens everything up, makes it that you can have a contract per row of the database. So maybe, I'll show you in a bit, but one of the things that I implemented with that is that only a user can see their own data or can manipulate their own data. You could even have it so that a user could see everyone's data, but only the person that wrote it could then manipulate or adjust that table. And I thought that very sort of molecular control of the database and the security protocols, I thought that was a real selling point for this, especially with the speed that you can get developing. As I said before, every project that you start is a managed Postgres database. So there's no maintenance for you. It's there. It's a maintained database in the cloud. That is, of course, unless you decide to take your own instance of Supabase and host it yourself somewhere, then you're going to have to manage it. I'll get back to that in a bit, but essentially Supabase is an open source software. You can pull an instance of this down in Docker and run it yourself and locally and host it somewhere. But their actual platform's really good, so I'm not sure why you'd do that. One of the big things that I first thought was, I was wondering how you could actually implement some business logic. So if you're just dealing straight with pulling things from a database and pushing things to a database, where does the business logic live? They actually have a solution for that in Edge functions, and they allow for, as I said, allow for the implementation of business logic, but they're built in Dino and they're hosted on the DNSs on the Edge network. So they're spread out, they're very quick to access. It's usually close to where you want to go to access it. The advantages are, they say it's keeping your functions next to your data or close to your data because it's with your project. But they're just written in TypeScript and you can write them as endpoints. They have SDKs built for Stripe, for cron jobs, for pretty much anything you can think of, Mailgun. So you can actually build those in and use the Edge functions where you would normally use a server. Authentication. Now, this was a real big one for me, and this is what first got me interested in this. Supabase can act as its standalone authentication platform. So you could just use it as an authentication platform where you can sign in, authenticate users, divert them back to your app. But it's actually baked into everything with a database. And you use the Postgres database to store your users tables. So it is kind of built into there as well. But yeah, it's built into Supabase. They have lots of SDKs for most languages or platforms, and you can literally drop them in. I'll talk more on that in a bit. It's quite easy to set up, but there are 2 different versions of it as well, so we'll go into that. And file storage. Yes, Supabase has file storage. So if you're needing to save receipts for a small business in PDF form, you can just drop them into a file storage that Supabase offers as well. So I think you'll agree with me, that's actually quite a lot to offer straight out the box. And it takes away a lot of the headaches, especially as a front-end developer, of having to set up a server and implement endpoints and logics for these things. So you can get going really, really quick. I'll just move on. Right, so when you're connecting your projects, the reason I've got this in here and I'm not going to show this one live is because it contained my API keys and I didn't want to share them with everybody. But in the projects, there's a small button and you can just click it and everything that you need will come down to be set up a link with your project. So you can set up your table, click connect, pick which framework you're using, and it will just give you the .envs to drop in. It also gives you a utils option where if you click along this line here, it will actually share with you the code to set up a client with Supabase. So everything's in there for you. Obviously, you change it out for your env files and your private keys, but then you've got a connection within minutes of working with Supabase. One of the apps I actually made as a personal app, I just used their SDK straight out of the box, and I was able to just initiate the Next.js project with a Supabase tag, and it actually had all of the Supabase login and auth pages and everything already in the app for me to use and manipulate and change. And I thought that was a really cool feature. I was able to get an app up and running in just a few hours. It wasn't a good app, but it was still an app. All right, so I feel like I've gone through that pretty quick, but as you'll see, it's fairly intuitive, and the UI for Supabase it really kind of helps you along. It's well laid out. It's fairly easy to use. So if I move down into VS Code, Which one is this? Not that one. So if I move into VS Code now, right, I'm going to show you how we actually create a table in Supabase and get the whole project working. So I've tried to make a really as simple as I can, just a React application here. This actually made in my lunchtime. So just to show you how quickly you can get things going with Supabase. So in here, as you can see, there's not really anything in. It would be, let me find it. So I put it under Supabase and utils. So this is actually the Supabase create client. So this was what was in that utils folder that I just showed you previously as you look at your connection. So it will give you the code to create a client. And you can see it's fairly standard. As long as you set up your .env, you're going to be able to create a client in this. So this is the code that we're actually seeing to create a client and export Supabase. So moving on to our table that we've got in here. It's just some basic state for a table. I'm accessing the client here, the Supabase client that we've just seen, and I'm just using a select to bring all. I'm not really building it any more than that. But if you see the select in here, this is what I'm saying. You can actually build up this endpoint like a SQL call. Right, so real simple. We've got a table. What's that? Jeff, this did it to me last time. I'm clicking and I'm moving. There we go. Let's put it this side. Yeah, I don't know how that did. However, right, so looking here, we've got a table and I'm going to make something so we can just track how many miles people walk. And I've got a small input field in here that I've created just to add data to this. And just to show you how quickly we can get moving with Supabase, let's go into, why has that come up? Let's go into Supabase and we're going to create a new table and we're going to call that table. And we're going to create a new column in there. New column is going to be name. So I've probably jumped straight into this, but this is just on the Supabase website, and this is signed into one of my projects that I'm going to be able to access. I've already used the connection strings and set up the env, just to save us some time and to save me sharing my private keys with the rest of the world. And what I'm going to do now is I've just gone in to make a table. As soon as I've done this, I'll show you quickly around the UI, and then I'll show you how we connect this table to the project. So we've got name, and we're going to need to select in here a data type. So we've got all these data types that we can choose from. I'm just going to go straight with a text field, and we're going to do miles. And for miles, we can just have a basic integer. And I can save that. As it's creating the table, my REST API endpoints are just being made instantly with it. And you'll see that because I created the client in the React app, that's already set up to call the API that is being generated from this table. Just to make sure that we have something, let's insert a row. So this is one way you can do it. You can insert things manually. So in this, I'm going to say, Jeff, how many miles do you walk today, Jeff? Make it a whole number, please. Well, Jeff's trying to set off to become a proclaimer, 150 miles.
Use the decimal point, I should have been on the front.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got some information in a table there. So I've got one record, time created at Jeff, 150 miles. So looking into this, looking around the UI, we've got a quick project overview. With table editor, we have a SQL editor. Whereas in here, this is a query I had looking for a user in my work log with the user ID matching a certain call. So I can run that in here and it will pull up things in the table. You've all seen SQL or used dbeaver or other things in work. This is pretty similar. you just have a SQL editor that you can query your databases with. If I was to change this and just select all from table, if I run that, I should get Jeff with 150 miles. Going through, you've got your database. I can look at databases in here. These are the schemas for databases. I can look at tables. So it tells me what tables I have. You can add functions to the tables. I haven't done that. But there's a lot of managed things in here that I found it was so complete. I haven't had time in the week to go through everything that it does. So I'm just giving you an overview of how things can work. The value proposition, why I think it's good. Your authentication in here. So one thing I am going to have to do is for my table, I'm going to have to go down to policies, and I'm going to have to disable the row level security because it's going to do that by default. The reason I'm doing that is because I haven't got any authentication set up. There's no record of the client ID that created this. So the default in the row level security would be to only allow an authenticated user to see something they've created. But I can just turn that off for now. Now, if I go to this page, I should be set up this thing. And if I go in there, I can see we've got Jeff, who's walked 150 miles. That is actually happening straight from this call in here. So we've got the Supabase client, and it's just calling a select on the table. What I also have in here is another one where I've done a create data. We've got the Supabase client from table insert, and it will take name in miles. So if I actually go back to here, I can take someone else's name. Ben, how far do you walk today, buddy? 300? 3 miles. So you see how quickly this is updating. This is taking information the minute I do it, sending it to Supabase, putting it into the table. But this thing really gets in the way. So put it into the table. So if I now look in my table editor, let's refresh. It's in the way again. Oh, it's popped up already. But it's in there again. It's updated the table. Then it's pulled that information back to my React app. And that's as quickly as you can move with Supabase. I mean, I know I'd already made the client and I'd already made the structure of a React app. But let's be honest, it's just a table and an input field. There's not a lot of Reacts going on there. A lot of this is being done with the Supabase SDK, just saving to a database. All right, what am I up to? So I made a table, disabled row level security, added data, showed it working in the React app. All right, auth. Now, auth is something that Jeff asked me to discuss. I have one of my projects open here. This is a project I have running. And if I find it, I'll just drop that terminal down. So looking at it in here, this is one of the ways that auth can be handled. Is this the right page? No, it is not. There. So this is one of the ways that auth can be handled. This is a Next.js application. And I actually started this using the SDK from Supabase, which is like you start the next app with npm, start next app or whatever it is. But then there's a flag to use Supabase or with Supabase, I think it is. And it will set this up with authentication modules already in there and already with clients set up to access Supabase. So it's actually doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. The more you go through the Supabase UI, they actually have components already made to help you build your app. And I think they're made in Shad CN as well. So they're very customizable and you can just pull them in. They really go in the extra mile just to help people develop and get up to speed and get moving fast. And I think that is excellent. So looking in this way, this is a Next.js app. Most of it is delivered from server-side code. So there's like I said, there's two forms of authentication. There's root level security, which would you probably have just in a normal client-side application where you maybe have React Router and you drop in middleware for your authentication. You know, if the authenticator user reaches that point, any endpoints after that, it'll ask for authentication for and won't let you access until you're authenticated. This one's slightly different in that the authentication now lives on the server because this is a next app. So this is data access level authentication. So this won't allow any queries or anything to be asked of the server unless a user is authenticated. So this one's slightly different. But whilst the access for the authentication is different, or the access point in the code is different, the flow is still the same. So one thing that happens with the authentication in Supabase is your Supabase handles everything in your project. So once you've logged in via whichever method you're going, your client or server is going to send the password and request off to Supabase. Supabase is going to authenticate that. It's then going to create a JWT token and it's going to send it back, you know, to allow you to access your app. So it's going to sign you in. Your server or client-side code can then either store that as an access token in local storage or cookies or however you're dealing with that there. The same thing with the authentication. It actually links in with all of the OAuth providers as well. In fact, you can use Supabase as an OAuth provider. If you want to set that up as a central source of authentication, you can use that to authenticate yourself into other apps. That's something that I thought was cool, but I haven't had time to look into yet. But I did, on this app, I did set up a Google Auth so that I don't have to remember my password. And that was time well spent. But this one in here, you'll just see that the authentication function is here, and it just wraps around what we want to show. So if a user's not authenticated, it won't show this. It'll jump straight to the login content. And this is the default function app. So everything's just in there. So if I just show you how that one is working, if I can. I think I have an instance of that working. So here is that big layout thing again. So here's access point to my app. Now, this is a login page. It was actually pretty much given to me on a platter by Next.js when I opened up with the Supabase, or then, you know, starter pack. It literally came with this. The only thing that I've changed on this is I changed the layout slightly and I added the Google login button. So if I click on this Google login button, and let's log in with this one. Is it going to do it? It's never asked me that before. It should. There we go, it logs in. So one thing that I did is, whilst Jeff asked me to work on something, I thought I would make it useful for myself. Now, this is just a little play around account, but I do have another account that I've been using now for just over a week to log things that I'm doing at work on a regular basis. So I thought it gave some value to me to keep a log of that, so that when the performance review comes around, I can look at what I've done, things I'm proud of, and refer back to it. It's a little geeky, I know, but it was a fun little project. So in here, I can, you know, look into any of these, and it will open up in a new window. This is actually editable, so I could click on this and edit any of this that I wanted. I do have a navigation bar up here, but it takes me. Sorry, I had to implement this the other day, so just give me a second. That page that you just saw was a landing page I created because when I hosted this app on my domain, Google flagged me as a phishing site. Even though I told them that my app has only one user and nobody else can sign up, they were pretty adamant that it was a phishing site and I was trying to collect people's data. So I've just implemented that today. I'm hoping that will then get Google to allow my page to be viewed. But essentially, you can move around the app. You can create a new entry. So if I create a new entry here, React, Denver, subject, giving presentation, speaking. So if I add that in here, now you'll be able to see that that has come up. It's a really simple app. It's just add a log, edit a log, create a log. But like I say, this was up and running and live on a domain until it got blocked within a couple of hours using Supabase. And if I actually log into Supabase now, I'd be able to look at my work log table. And if I found the right issue, so where is it? There's not that many in here. Giving presentation, here you go. So giving presentations actually in the React Denver and speaking. So all that information is now in my Supabase for me to access. Right, I think that's all the demo that I was going to give. One thing that I do want to go back to is if I can move on to this. Right, I wanted to, or Jeff had asked me to give a quick comparison chart because we wanted to see how this provides to other offerings that are available. Like I said, not all of, in fact, most of these, I wouldn't even class as the same kind of thing as Supabase because most of these are database as a service. I think with the exception of PocketBase and Firebase, the rest are just databases. But you can see I've put things that Supabase can offer as the type of database. PocketBase is actually a really interesting one. That's the only other thing that is open source on here. PocketBase is Go, and that has an SQL embedded database. So a lot of these things won't really be relatable to PocketBase. However, I think PocketBase is worth exploring soon for me. I think it'll be really cool to create an app with an embedded database, something that holds its own data, so I'm not managing things. Firebase, obviously, that is from Google. That is a NoSQL database, which is loved by Jeff, I think. And with it being Google, it's not open source. You can't host it yourself, and it just has a few more restrictions. But it does offer authentication. It does handle business logic through their cloud functions, and it will essentially do a lot of the things that Supabase can do. Neon's just a Postgres database that's a database as a service. So there you pretty much just get your connection string for pooling, which you can also get with Supabase. You can add the Postgres endpoints into a lot of these, I believe, from what I read on it, but they don't come with it all as standard. Mongo obviously is a NoSQL database similar to Firebase, but it's just database as a service. And then you have the Amazon offerings in here. But I think, as you can see, what I tried to do with this table was to make a table of things that you would be interested in, things that would be of benefit to you to move quickly, things that are going to take weight off your table for building, managing, creating. And as you can see, I really don't think that Supabase has much competition in this area, especially if you're looking for a relational database and a managed Postgres instance. I think it's fantastic, and I'm really quite fond of this company and the offering that they have. Right, so back to the initial slide. What we were going to have a look at was the value proposition that Supabase offers. You know, building a weekend scale to millions. Well, we've just seen how quickly you can get things built. I know the app that I built here was literally just pulling some data, sending some data. It isn't a full app. But you can see it's not that big a jump to be able to build something more complex, to have more endpoints, to have more ways to interact with your database, to build out those queries as you would an SQL query and be more specific in what you're asking the database for different functions. We've touched on other offerings that it has with the edge functions and the real-time subscriptions. But I haven't had time to go into all of them. Quite honestly, what they offer is that big that I didn't have time in this last week to look into everything in depth. But I think overall as a service, this is fantastic and it's worth checking out for other people. So I think that concludes everything that I wanted to speak to you about. Has anybody got any questions?
Curious about
deploying Supabase app, how was that experience for you? Besides getting flagged for phishing, was it pretty intuitive? Were there any kind of notches there?
Well, Supabase is deployed. Supabase is already in the cloud. So the only thing that I had to deploy in that app was my Next.js app, which, you know, you point to Vercel and it's deployed within seconds from your GitHub. Now, I also added a domain in there. If I'd have left it on Vercel, it wouldn't have got flagged, but I used Namecheap, and that actually probably only took me 4 or 5 minutes. It was really quite straightforward.
So if you like go and create a new tape in like a lower environment, are you promoting that to production, like through the UI or something?
Well, no, it lives in Supabase and it just makes new endpoints for it. I mean, where I added the table in my Supabase project there, that is a live app. That's the one that's live holding my work log. I just created a new table in there and I used the new endpoints that it created to access it from another app, which is why I didn't want to share my endpoints, because I've got an app that I want to keep using and I didn't want to share my secret keys with everybody and have to change everything. And
Yes, maybe for a question, there are environments and stuff at staging on production sort of not. I'd say production. Yeah, there's a little red production there, so they have a bad drop times of select environment. So not everything was production. It is, as he says, it's in production on the cloud, so all you gotta do is have the keys and access.
so I think I misunderstood that, but yeah, you could even replicate tables to have like a dev environment, a QA environment, so that can happen as well, yeah.
Cool.
But essentially in the same, whilst they'd have different flags, they would all be live with endpoints to visit on the cloud.
I see. And then it's just a matter of wherever you deploy your next app, you switch out the keys to whatever environment.
You could do. I mean, you can make multiple projects, so they don't all have to live in one project. I also have another project that is a work in progress for me at the minute because I got quite interested in this, and but that I wasn't ready to just have up, and it's got more sensitive information in, so I just built a table in this because currently on the Supabase free plan, they'll only allow you to have 2 projects. I think the next tier in levels is like £25 or $25. Sorry, we're in America, and that would allow you to have more projects. And it also increases the amount of data that you can hold, and you get larger egress and ingress allowances. That's all on the web. I'm not going to just regurgitate that from the website, largely because I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's there for you to just go and find and see what their allowances are. I think they have something like 500 megabytes of file storage with it, and I think it's 5 megabytes of ingress and egress. But you'd have to look at that. Ben, did you have a question as well?
Yeah, does it do anything for like logs or error?
It does. There is logs in Supabase. You can access them through an SQL query. If you know what those logs are, like you can have literally write a query for all logs within the last X number of hours, and it will show you login.
So you get like that.
I'm sorry, mate. I can't hear you.
Sorry. If you get like a critical error, will it like $2?
That's a good question. I believe you could set that up, but you could also definitely go and check a log and find it.
Is it logging like each time you refresh your page and the log that selects for that data, or is it deeper than that?
It's not one that I've looked into a lot.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, I was more interested at this point in trying to get a small app up to show you how we can get data to and from the database. Logging, I mean, if it's backend as a service, logging's very important. I probably should have looked into that more. When I did look at a log, this was a couple of weeks ago, I did look at a log and it was just showing me service calls to and from the app. So and this was early on in me playing with it, I had it and it was showing me when I'd made a call against what table with what information. So it was logging things in that manner.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you play with it, I don't want to give a definite answer to that because it might do a lot more than I know it does. In fact, it probably will be.
But at minimum, if you from the front end select table and then column that doesn't exist, that would go in the log, you can actually
Yeah.
log that, so.
I imagine it'll also log entries and reductions from the database, but it's all in there.
I think it's the MCP yet.
I haven't used the MCP yet. I've only just started looking into MCPs. I've just started using an MCP for, I think it was, what was it? I think it was for TypeScript and VS Code. No, it wasn't. It was for Material UI. So I put the Material UI MCP in because I have to use that at work. And that actually has given me a lot more correct content coming back if I ask the question in Copilot. A lot, actually. It sped things up incredibly. So, yeah, so I think that brings us to a head, Jeff. Thanks everyone for sitting here. I'll hand you back over to Jeff.
Since you have the mic turned on already. All right, that's it for the presentation. Have the space till like 8:30, so hang out, chat. Please eat the pizza because I am not taking it home. And next month, I don't have a talk scheduled yet, but trust me, there will be one first Tuesday of the month. Thank you.